Welcome back to HMP. Our spring cleaning continues as this week we talk about Late Night with the Devil. I am your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, he's levitating in his seat right now. Please welcome the Hartford Hellion, Sweet Chauncey Kovacs from the internet.
And I'm full of worms.
Who amongst us isn't filled with just at least a little bit of worms here and there? Today we're talking about Late Night with the Devil. Getting a lot of quite solid praise this movie, and we're here to find out if that's worth it or not. Made a theatrical run even. Nice and surprising these days from little horror films like this, when you can actually go out and get into major theaters and stuff like that. So pretty sweet on them. But we'll talk about all that good stuff as well. Bruce Leslie is out this week. He's doing some musical theater stuff. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah. It's a family function because all his kids are in musical theater.
The talent just flows out of that family. They can't help it.
Nothing takes up your time as a parent more than your kids' extracurricular activities, like whether you have a sports kid or a theater kid or a science kid. Like it literally is your weekend when your kids are in that.
So let this be a lesson to all of you. Make sure your kids have zero interests and shut them away from anything that they might enjoy. Just because it might be your time.
I can remember distinctly enjoying doing that with my girls. Like I can remember being like, "Oh, this is like I legitimately had fun for the most part. Like 80% of it was fun to do. It's that 20% where you're just like, man,
there is the 20% that feels like 60%, but it's you're right. It's probably more 20 that it's like, okay, it's not as bad as it could be, but. What's the old thing? When it was bad, it was very, very bad.
Yes. It's when, like I can remember on a certain Friday one time, my oldest daughter had a poetry reading. And so I work the 12-hour day I'm working, then go to her thing, and just a lot of kids earnestly telling you how terrible their lives are. Even though they're like 12.
It's just like, everything is really, really bad. Now I'm going to go back to my parents' house.
No, if you'll excuse me, I'm getting in the SUV and going home.
Do I pay for this? No, shut up. It's none of your business. But I got a lot of ennui here, so careful. But yep. If you like this program, why don't you do us a big old giant favor? Head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Those people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And I got to be honest with you, right now is the time for Dinger Zones because what we got going on in those Dinger Zones shapes where this here show is going. And if you want to know what that means, patreon.com/HMP. Join up at any level. We love all of you guys. We really appreciate it, and we want to keep this show going on strong. And we do that with the help of you guys, and not only monetarily, but also with suggestions, thoughts, sometimes prayers, because God knows we might need it sometimes.
As I say to my very, very religious friend, who I talk to maybe once every 3 years, I say, she goes, "I'm praying for you," and I go, "Keep on praying."
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. The people that sit there and take offense and just go like, "What?" Like, just shut up and say thank you for the love of Pete.
Well, that's just as bad. Look, there are bad people on both sides of that equation, where it's like, I mean, I know plenty of people who are atheists who are just as awful as the super religious people that I've run into before.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them just turn it into their own religion at that point where you're like, who?
Yeah.
I thought you were trying to get away from all of this. What happened? Anyway, but we want to thank you, all of those people. And the cool part is, like I said, pre-show, post-show, just Dinger Zone, but they also get to vote on what we watch each month. And we got a couple of things here, again, in our spring cleaning. These are some things that we've kind of missed over the little time here and everything. So we want to give you guys a chance to tell us what you would like us to cover. So we're going to check out either The Creator. That's kind of like it looked like a Star Wars kind of ripoff sort of thing, but got some decent word of mouth, I thought. Aquaman 2, we covered the first Aquaman on HMP, and why did we not get around to Aquaman 2? I think you know why. It's Aquaman 2.
Yeah, take a guess.
Did you see the first Aquaman? We did.
Yeah, and also it's part of a universe that no one's in anymore.
Yeah.
It is an unoccupied universe.
When everyone is dead and or dying, and they just go, "Can you come and please see our thing?" For what reason? Well, maybe you could tell us what reason. Aquaman 2's up for vote, as well as the new show on Amazon, Fallout. Been getting some rave reviews over there. Also, we missed the Jason Statham movie, The Beekeeper. If there's anything that I want to see, it's Jason Statham being a beekeeper and shoving somebody in the throat, which is surely what he does in that movie. I don't know, but that's a guess. If it does become just a beekeeping movie, I will eat my own words. But I don't think it's that. Just based upon history.
So desperately just want it to be this little quiet film about him tending to bees.
Sometimes I need to go and release a little bit of stress, so I'll go out with the bees.
There's also no way in hell that there isn't multiple kills with bees in this movie. There's just no way.
Somebody's getting stabbed in the eye with a bee or something like that.
Without
that kind
a
of stuff
doubt.
happens.
There's a lot of bee fatality in this movie.
Speaking of fatalities and unnecessary things, the last movie that you could vote on for is Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. I haven't
Adam
seen anything.
needed to put that on there for some reason.
I feel like, you know how some this is awful. It's like, it's just sometimes you just got to put one round in the chamber and spin it.
It's because you're an apologist.
I'm a Zack Snyder apologist. Is that what the road we're going with now? I am listen, I will defend a few Zack Snyder films, and I will damn a lot of his films. I cannot say at this particular moment whether or not Rebel Moon falls into either one of those categories because I have not seen it. And
haven't seen it?
No, and I am not a person who goes and just starts going like, that's garbage if I haven't seen it. I will watch your garbage. I mean, I went to a theater and saw Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, everybody.
Hey, what is your favorite Zack Snyder movie?
It's probably still Dawn of the Dead, but that's mostly because of James Gunn's script, really.
Yeah, it's the script, really, that movie.
I mean, yeah.
Because I think, call me a basic bitch, but I think my favorite is still 300. I know that movie now these days, a lot of people not fans of saying that. A lot of people don't like hearing that, but that is a well-crafted movie for what that movie is. Also, because I'm kind of gay. So I love it.
It helps kind of even it all out. It just makes sense. So whatever craziness you would like to unleash upon us, why don't you head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Join up at any level. Help this here program out. Start ordering us around, telling us what to do. We like it. Don't worry. Patreon.com/HMP. And if you can't do that, my goodness, go over to the iTunes, drop us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger. And that'd be awesome, everybody. And of course, email us here, moviepodcast@gmail.com. Just on account of. All right, let's get into it. Here is the IMDb plot line for Late Night with the Devil. As we all know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. This is written and directed by brothers Cameron and Colin Carnes. The only thing that they've really done of note was in 2016. They directed a movie called Scare Campaign. I did not see that, so I cannot comment on it.
Yeah, nor I've never seen any of their work until this week when I watched this movie. And as you know, Adam, this is the movie that I was kind of looking most forward to.
This was funny because you had mentioned it before, because I'd seen, I knew it was coming out, and now horror movies and stuff are not something that normally comes on your radar and everything. So the fact that you mentioned it out of the blue, and I saw it, and I thought, oh, that's going to look pretty good. I'd like to watch that. And then when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, it's even getting out of the regular horror space as well.
Yes, it also is so very different from other horror movies, which is why I like it. Which is why I wanted to see it in the first place. Taking a very old trope of a possessed child and kind of doing something so totally different with it is just great. Just a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, when you kind of think about it, if you think about just the easiest broad strokes of things, it is just kind of a possession movie, so to speak. There's more stuff going on in it, of course, but kind of at its basic sort of core root and everything, it is a possession movie. But you're right, it's not done in the same. It's tough. Like after The Exorcist, what do you really do?
Right. Exactly.
You know, it's tough.
Exactly.
Like they set a bar there, and there's others that have done like interesting things, like your Exorcism of Emily Rose. That's a very different kind of thing. There was some found footage one. I bought it. I even have it. And they did a sequel that was like a non-found footage, which was okay. But there was like a possession movie. I think it was. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but. It's a tough thing to do uniquely and differently because it's A, been done so many times, and B, done so many times pretty darn well.
Yeah.
So to come back and have something that you can do this and do it in kind of a fresh new take and everything, pretty smart. Well, let me sell everybody on this low-budget late-night horror because this sucker's got everything. We got Dave Dastmalchian in his first leading role, and it's 1977, and the late-night hosts are still a relevant thing. Not today, boy. We got documentary footage for backstory. We got a live broadcast on Halloween, a visit from a guy who looks like the goat dude in Drag Me to Hell. It's not him. I looked it up. We got an amazing Randy ripoff, a lady that talks with the demons, rather. Her devil-adjacent possessed ward. We got a late night sidekick, a boozed out floor director, visits from the higher ups, talk about the occult, cold reading, bile spewing, face melting, voice distorting, chairs flying, head splitting, eyes glowing, dreams or waking reality, behind the scenes footage with changing aspect ratios galore, and a whole lot of. We'll be right back. This movie's got everything.
Yeah, I don't know why I was so surprised that this is basically. There's a ghost in the house movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, and I kind of figured it out. Like, let's start over. So I knew all I knew about this movie was what I saw in the trailer. Mm-hmm. And I love Dastmalchian, as I believe you do as well. And I think Bruce does too. I think the three of us are big fans of his.
Oh yeah.
And so finally he's going to headline a movie. And I was like, I need to see this movie. Like straight away. And also the fact that it's set in 1977 on a talk show and like a late night talk show, like all of these things seemed great to me. There's a lot of things that are in my wheelhouse when it comes to style of movie. And so I was like, yes, 1,000 times yes. The way this movie opens, where you learn the Dastmalchian's character's bio,
mm-hmm.
That part is great too, where he's like you learn, he was a comedian from Chicago and he kind of rose to prominence a bit, but he was not as famous as Johnny Carson, and he wanted to be Johnny Carson really bad. And you learn all these things about him through basically through media clips.
Yeah,
right?
Your VH1 behind the music, if you will.
Right. And it's great. Like, just the setup of this is just incredible. And then when you get into, this is where I cut myself off earlier. Then when you get into the studio is such a big build for a movie that's so small. I immediately knew, I was like, oh, we're going to be in the movie theater. We're going to be in the TV studio for the rest of the movie.
Right.
Basically. Because there's nothing else they could do. I mean, they probably spent something like $250,000 of their money on what probably cost $1 million to make just on this set. So I would, after I saw it, I was like, wow, this is where they're going to be. And I was right about that. And so right off the bat with this movie I've been really looking forward to, I was like, oh no, they're going to be stuck in this one spot for the whole movie. I hope they can pull it off. And I was pleasantly surprised that they could, although there is a bit of stumbling in the beginning. This is a classic 3-act structure movie. And so that first act is great. The middle is where I was starting to get like, oh no. But by the third act, it's great.
I think we can talk about that, and because I think I know where you're going, but I think that serves the story. We'll kind of get to it. The opening and stuff. This just shows again when you don't have a big budget, but you got a lot of brains and a lot of ideas and stuff. You use all of this file footage to your benefit. go and take all of this crazy cool stuff from the 70s and stuff. You didn't pay for any of this, so to speak, as far as production goes, but you get a lot of like riots and stuff and crazy things from the 70s, and then like a bunch of like like newspaper clippings kind of things, and just really being able to kind of tell that story, then weave in Dastmalchian footage and stuff like that, and Photoshop magazine covers and whatnot, really just making the world a real believable sort of thing. And I love that we actually put it up against Johnny Carson, up against a real thing that we know, instead of like Skip Johnson, the real head of late night, blah, blah, blah. No, we made it Carson, because who Johnny Carson is, and Johnny Carson was number one. So there's no, you could see this being a thing that in the 70s, you just didn't happen to see because you were watching Carson just like everybody else.
Right. And, now I had to look it up, but Dastmalchian's character's name is Jack Delroy. And I should have known that because everyone's screaming Jack the entire movie. I should have known that. But the character himself, I thought he was going to be the one who was possessed when I first saw the trailer for this movie, only because it's Dastmalchian.
I was about to say, you've got a weird kind of guy who does some weird, crazy roles for the most part. So
and they didn't give him that in this movie. Instead, they gave him so many different little layers for him to play with, which I think he just does amazingly. So, he's supposed to be off the cuff funny, which he is. The character is. That 70s like snarky funny, like Match Game funny, or Hollywood Squares funny.
I got a little quip, a little thing right here. It's just enough to make the audience laugh. It's not really risque or dirty per se, but it's enough to get a little like, ha ha ha. He's that kind of guy. He's fast on his feet.
Right. It's dirty. Like his jokes are like a clean, dirty, like a bachelorette party kind of a thing. And so he's playing with that. Then also there's the fact that he is deeply in love with his wife, like for real in love with his wife. And it's not some fake Hollywood thing, which I think he pulled off amazingly well. And then the third thing being that he is so desperate to win as a celebrity. Like he wants to beat Carson so bad. He wants to keep his show so bad. Like he wants to stay relevant so bad. And there's a desperation that comes off of him because the character is basically working through fear by the time that, he steps onto the stage for the first time in this movie, instead of just watching, the back matter of this movie at the top of it and the intro. And so what we get the second he steps onto that stage, you kind of feel all three of these things as he's introducing the show. And it's a really well done job by somebody who I liked already, but now I really like him. Like I thought he was great. I think he's great in everything he's done. Like even in those terrible Ant-Man movies, the two,
he's very funny.
I love the first Ant-Man movie, but I don't like the other two. And he's great in all three of those movies. He completely steals a movie that should have been unstolenable in Suicide Squad. He's great in that. And then he's also great in Batman, which, is where I know him from, is from Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And it seems like for the first movie that he's been the lead in, it's interesting that he also is an executive producer on it, which basically means that he's putting his money where his mouth is. Like he trusts in his own, and this is just me guessing, but he trusts in himself enough to know I am going to be able to make this work. And so I'm going to be an executive producer on this first film that I'm actually starring in. And I love it.
I happen to have the latest issue of Fangoria magazine here, volume 2, number 23, that has a little Late Night with the Devil article in it, and I'd like to read for you here how Dave Dastmalchian here got this role. And so he's being interviewed by a guy who works for like Seth Meyers or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And so he asks, is it true that you were cast in this movie based on an article you wrote for Fangoria? Dave says, very true. I've been collecting Fangoria for years as an adult with pride, but in secret as a kid because most horror was frowned upon in my very religious household. So I snuck my favorite horror fixes in late night watching Crematoria Mortem, our local horror show in Kansas. I lost my mother during the pandemic and I was thinking a lot about the safe space that these horror hosts provided me. They would bring me in and out of these scary movies that I wanted to watch so badly, but also scared me. And then thinking about the few times that I did watch a scary movie with my mom and the connection that we had from that. And then Phil Noble Jr. gave me the opportunity to write about that for effing Fangoria magazine. Talk about surreal, man. And Late Night with the Devil directors Colin and Cameron Carnes down in Australia read the article and made them want to pitch me the project. They sent me the script and deck, and I soon opened it, and I was hooked. So based upon his writing an article in Fangoria about horror hosts and stuff is how he got this movie. And Dave Dastmalchian, host of all the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards as well.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's neat.
So Dave is a big horror hound and stuff like that. And like, I think he even, mentions in that article and stuff about how, when he got to work on Suicide Squad, he got his first camera test for all of his crazy makeup and stuff. And he's like, I just started crying. It was my Lon Chaney Jr. moment where I'm seeing myself and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm this beautiful, hideous monster.
That's great.
And I'm just like, this is a dude who just digs what he's doing. And I hope he does more stuff like this because I think he knows what lane he's in. I don't think he has any like, I'm going to be this leading man. He's like, I'm going to be the guy who does this kind of stuff. And I think he's very comfortable with that.
So what do you think of his performance in this?
I think it's great. I think he is showing us so much range and everything. He has the late night talk show host down so well.
Specifically that like 70s syndicated late night host. Just where it's like the Mike Douglas show.
Mm-hmm. So he also he talks about Don Lane. It was one of his big inspirations for this. The Don Lane show that ran from 75 to 83. So and if you watch any of that stuff, Don Lane's most famous kind of one, you can look this up on YouTube, is his interview with Tom Waits, where Tom Waits is just Tom Waits. And Don Lane's like, what the hell is going on here? This guy's a strange cat, isn't he? He's like, yes, he is. But that's who he based a lot of on this. And if you see this juxtaposed the two, you're like, oh, definitely see that. But he's really like, he's got from literally just like how he's standing and moving on his feet to what the decisions that he's making with his hands, how he's pointing, just tiny little bull crap things that go on in late night talk show that if you're not looking for them, if you aren't focusing, you're not going to see it. But it's part of that kind of act, if you will, the art of that late night thing. It is that Johnny turning over to the side to look at Ed and have all of those things. And there's a certain musicality to, the dance, if you will. And they do also, it quite well.
It's about moving things forward, right? I mean, that's basically what this performance is he's always trying to move things forward when he's in talk show host mode. Mm-hmm. Things slow down once they go to black and white and they cut to commercial. But I think that when he is in host mode, he's literally just trying to move the ball forward, and you can feel it in his performance. It's just terrific.
And you can also kind of see the wheels spinning as well for this is a guy who has been up against Carson and up against a big giant ratings problem here. And this is the start of Sweeps Week, which, by the way, it turns out they wanted this to be A, on Halloween, and B, wanted it to be on Sweeps Week, at the beginning of Sweeps Week, no less. So 1977 was the only Monday that they could find that had Halloween in it. That would be right where Sweeps Week would actually be. Huh. So they kind of, I maybe a little apocryphal, but I don't know. I like it as a story.
Yeah, makes for a good story.
Yeah, it was just even if it's completely untrue, it's a good story.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just to see him You're right. Just have that kind of constant television stuff. And then when you do go to that black and white, and again, this is where I think his performance is really fantastic, is because he twists. He twists and turns, and he's not hosting anymore. He is just that regular guy who is trying to hold on desperately to that, I need to be number one sort of thing. And we don't get into it. I think this is probably where my biggest little gripe with the movie, is I wish we would have kind of leaned in a little bit more to the occult stuff that he was involved in. It was a little fringe lines. We don't know enough. I feel.
I know where you're coming from with this, but I mean, they're trying to make it seem like it's an Elks Lodge kind of a thing at the top of the movie. And so I understand, yeah, they should have, in the second act, they probably should have hit the occult thing a little more. But at the top of the movie, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you need to make it feel like, look, it's just a couple of gents hanging out. Like it's not,
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's all based upon
like going into your Rotary Club.
Yeah, trust me. Any like Rotary Club, Lions Club, all of that stuff, I figure is all just exactly like this. It's all just bloodletting. I don't know. They're probably all lovely people, I would imagine. But like, there's part of you just goes like, what are y'all doing over there? What do you got? Big Grand Poobah hats? What's going on? I don't know. And it just seems like but like this is based upon like the Bohemian Grove in California, where it was like two former presidents were like members of that thing, and a whole bunch of other, muckety mucks and stuff like that. And, there's weird secret societies from your Skull and Bones and all that kind of jazz going out throughout. But I like stuff like that, weird secret societies of the, rich or powerful and stuff like that. And like, how they remain in power and all that kind of stuff. And I like the idea that this guy's just like, listen, man, I got to beat Carson. So if I got to go to the devil, we going to go with the devil.
Mm-hmm.
But he was, again, huge praise for Dave Dastmalchian. It's the most screen time in any movie here. And ultimately, while there's a couple of other, factors and stuff in it, this movie kind of rises and falls on him. If he sucks, this movie is no good.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically all him, with the exception of the third act.
Mm-hmm.
The first two acts of this movie, it's just, you have got to believe that he's a talk show host, a late night talk show host. You got to believe that he's got some personal crap that he's going through, and they set up. I mean, when they set up, we'll get into it later because it's more of a plot thing than talking about an actor. So I'm going to switch instead, if you don't mind. Yeah. I'd like to talk about Ian Bliss for a second. He's the guy who plays the skeptic who was a magician.
Yes.
That character. Do you recognize him?
Like the actor?
Yes.
Like he's somebody I sat there and looked at him and I felt like I know this guy from someplace, but I couldn't place it.
Get ready for this. So his most famous role before this movie, which, I mean, it's not like this movie is going to make $250 million, but it's at least another thing that he'll be known for. His most famous role up till this moment was he is in The Matrix 2 and 3, because he plays the human that Agent Smith inhabits at the end of 2.
Is that right?
That's him. Same guy.
Now that I'm kind of thinking about it, yeah. Okay.
It is. It's literally him.
Yeah,
it's the same actor.
I can absolutely, now that you mention, I wish I would have seen that like when I watched it, because now that you mention it, it's just like, yeah, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, you put 20 years on him, that's what that guy's going to look like.
Yeah.
And it is literally him.
He's great in it too.
He is. He's really good because you hate him right from the beginning.
But he's right too.
Yeah. Yep.
He's right because he's the skeptic that comes in. He's obviously based on The Amazing Randy, who I think everybody likes The Amazing Randy. If you don't like The Amazing Randy, you're probably a swindler, I would think.
Well, The Amazing Randy also isn't a pompous ass like this guy is.
No, he was. That's true. He was a little bit more of just like hey, listen, ain't none of y'all could figure this out. This guy's like, I'm gonna step on all your throats to get here and tell you how bad you are.
He is wonderful in this, and it was killing me also. because I knew I knew him, and I knew I knew him well from something, and I could not place it. And I ended up having to look it up. I'm trying to do this thing more and more where I'm trying to work my brain to get the answer for me instead of just looking it up, so that I don't become soft-headed. But I had to look it up. I mean, it was probably about an hour that I was that I was trying to think of it. It's like, finally, you know what? I'm going to just look it up.
I do like that Amazon X-ray. I like that stuff where you can just boop boop and go, oh, there's that dude. That's who that is. What a lovely feature. I wish everybody had that stuff.
I agree. Totally agree. But he's great in it. The guy who plays Christu, the vaguely foreign mystic.
It's great. You don't know where he's from. You don't know what he's doing, but like he seems like he might be putting something on, but then again, he might not be. That's again something else I like about the characters, that like he's kind of a fraud and stuff. So when these things start to sort of happen, but again, all right, I'm jumping a little bit, but when he goes through, he's doing the cold reading and stuff, and it's going kind of not so great and stuff, which is great. I love how it's just like, oh, look, the spirits left me. Oh, I don't know this stuff anymore. But then when he gets to the conversation with the two ladies and everything about their dead father and husband, it's really good. Like the emotion stuff is really there, and even though that what's going on right now has been manipulated, because you're not a dum-dum. You realize that this is some sort of bullcrappery going on. And we learned later that obviously, which is hilarious, they go, come to think of it, we were questioned when we came in and talked to him a whole bunch about people that were dead and stuff. Yeah. I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of how he could figure it out. He got wired in there. But like a really great emotional scene that just so much plays by itself, but yet you feel the fakeness coming from this guy and him accepting that as like, and then the real stuff going down, and then the skeptic being obviously skeptical of it's so good. It's just being seeing something that is right in front of his face, a man spewing bile on him from 25 feet away, and he just goes, simple parlor trick. Stuff like that of like, I'm only seeing what I really want to see here and everything. So the skeptic is, even when faced with reality, oftentimes is just going, no, that can't be, which is great, which is what he would do.
You know what I want to do is I do want to watch this again, because there are 2 or 3 moments where Jack is speaking to the floor manager of the show, and he says things like, this is the light cue for this. This is where the smoke comes in, like all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're talking, but he's doing it so quickly before we know what we know.
Yeah.
That I want to see what he's saying to the floor manager those few times when they cut to break, because they are saying things back and forth to each other for setups. And I'm wondering how much of the foreign mystic guy there is that's set up that they're talking about before we know. And the second one is when they are talking to the possessed girl and her handler, like because it happens a few times, and I'd be very interested to see how much they're trying to convey that they were planning on setting up previously, which is worth a rewatch to me.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and like, I didn't hear any of that sort of stuff, but I could. You hear it like you hear a lot of what's his face from West Wing and all that, Andrew Sorkin dialogue, where it's just like you just hear a lot of stuff, and it can kind of wash over you if you're not quite paying attention to that sort of thing, and like it may have, like you said, some consequences down the road there, but like it just sounded like jargon and stuff that it was like coming off so smooth, you're just like, oh, they're just talking TV stuff.
Right. But I think that instead of this being an Aaron Sorkin thing, I think this is more of like the beginning of Iron Man, where the terrorists are speaking to each other and they're telling the entire movie that if you don't speak whatever they're speaking, I think it's Farsi, but I don't know for sure.
That sounds right.
That if you speak that language, they literally are giving away the entire plot of the movie at the beginning, at the opening of the movie, but because they're not They're not telling us what they're saying. We have no idea what they're saying to each other.
And then in the end, when Thanos comes in and Ant-Man runs up his butt.
so the man, that never did happen, did it?
No, it didn't, unfortunately. Yeah,
unfortunately. So I think that's what they're doing. I think that they're trying to show you, like, they want to reward you in a rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of Sixth Sensey, where you're like, oh, that never did happen. They made you think that happened, but it didn't. That kind of thing.
I'm going to have a small little rant here real fast because you did mention watching this again. And I will say that if in this, which I would hope that it would, I can't imagine that it wouldn't, but if this comes out on physical media, I will certainly be purchasing it for this reason and this reason. I don't want to say alone, but one of the main reasons that I will is because I believe that the audio for this could have been amazing. But unfortunately, I hope you're listening, Shudder, get it together. Get it together, bro. You got stereo. This is the 21st century, my friend. The year of our Lord 2024, and you still rolling stereo? That is absurd. Absurd. And now listen, here's the thing. Most of the stuff on your streaming service is going to be 2-channel crap from, the 80s on back. That's fine. That's all fine, good and well. But these new things that come out in 5.1, you need to have that in 5.1, my friend. You're ripping us off. So just get it together, man. Because I'm sitting there watching, and like there's good bass hits that goes, but again, it's just stereo. So it's like frustrating, very frustrating. So please come out on DVD. I will purchase you.
This is one of my favorite things about you, Adam Fortress.
Ugh, drive me bananas.
So nice. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about. So his sidekick, Gus.
Yes.
Did you like that? Did you like that actor and that character? Because I love him. I think he's great.
Here's the thing. He looks, acts, and feels like he would be a late night sidekick host.
It's why he's perfect, right?
Yeah. It's perfect because he's not an ugly looking guy, but he's kind of a regular looking dude, little receding hairline there and everything. And he's just like, he looks like those announcers,
So this is that actor's name is Reza Torre.
Mm-hmm.
And this is literally his second thing he's ever worked on.
Wow.
And it's his first quote real unquote movie he's ever been in.
Not too shabby.
He is really great in this for somebody who it's really his first real thing.
Yeah, I would have thought he'd have been one of these guys that, like, because I think they shot this in Australia. I would imagine he would have been just an Australian character actor for a bit.
That is exactly what I thought too. He is not. They plucked him from nothing. Maybe Australian theater, but this is his first. This is his first thing. The other thing he shot was a short in 2018.
Wow.
So this is literally his first thing. And to be this good at it and to have such a good performance, it's
a pretty big role, really, considering like what he is. This role's he's got a lot to do here. He's got a whole,
he really does.
Whole ass scene to himself.
He does. And on top of that, there's the thing with him where everyone's like, just don't tell Gus, like, let's not tell Gus that guy died, and so and he has to play that where he knows, but they haven't told him, and he knows that they haven't told him. Mm. And he plays that scene so well. He's so good in it.
Yeah, you buy everything that he's going for, and then when we get to the point where he's under the hypnosis and ripping worms and stuff out of his body, he sells that so well for a first-time actor, so to speak, for a guy that hadn't really been in a whole bunch of stuff to be able to, like, hold that scene on his own pretty much. Because, like, your Amazing Randy ripoff, he's, like, hypnotizing him and everything, but he's the one he's got all the busy work. He's got all the things. He's got to rip open his stomach and everything and all that. Just so good. I was, and I like how we also play with, the mass hypnosis idea for everything. Yeah. I love that interplay, and like one thing and how we discover it as the movie itself is kind of showing and discovering it and saying, "Hey, here, oops, you've been lied to this whole time." Well, not this whole time, but at least this portion of time.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't feel like a cheat like it does in that movie where magic is really cool.
Mhm.
I can't even remember what the name of those movies are. They
Now
made
You
two
See
of them.
Me?
I'm sorry?
Now You See Me?
Yes, Now
Yeah.
You See Me. Where it feels
Magic
like
is
such a
sexy and
cheat
real.
in that movie.
What are you talking about? It's all real. Sexy real.
This makes it feel more right for some reason, and I don't know what tricks they pulled off to make it feel correct and not like, aha, we fooled you the entire time. The whole thing was hypnosis. Like that doesn't feel fun and cool to me. Like that's lame.
Well, the part of it that kind of works is that like he also like he mentions that like, hey, they do a really great job with all the setting the table, right? Because he's sitting in front of this guy with his little crazy watch and everything. Love the design of the watch, really weird and crazy, and just shink shink hits that thing and it just kind of goes in a circle. Very cool. So they're setting up the table like, hey, you're watching this. The audience is watching this. They've got televisions in the studio that people are looking at, so they're guaranteeing that all eyes are on this thing. The people that are watching on television are watching into this thing just as these people are. And they even mention, it's like, listen, it's going to get most of us. It's not going to get everybody. They even mentioned in the studio audience, 2-3 people didn't see the things that were going on. They just saw what they saw going on. But everyone else saw the worms and stuff like that. So having that, because we're watching this broadcast, because we are also, susceptible, so to speak, for the hypnotism and stuff like that. Indeed, just like the audiences who watched television that night, we too would also see those worms until we didn't. Pretty smart.
Right. Yeah, it is. And I think also the fact that it's not the last thing. I think if it was the last bit, like this is the big reveal at the end of the movie, I think we would be like, that's a cheat. That's a ripoff.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's not the last thing, it's just it was just a trick at that moment. Like it's not the big payoff, because the big payoff, as far as third acts go, this movie, my word, what a fantastic third act. It feels like they made the third act first. Like they came up with the idea of the third act first for me. The actress who plays the possessed kid, Ingrid Torelli, I had to look her up because I was like, this is an actor who has acted before. Like you can tell. Like she's really good at it. And so I had to look her up, and she was in the musical for what's it called? Matilda. She's in the Matilda musical.
Okay.
And so she can also sing as well, apparently. And shocked to learn, also Australian.
Huh.
I know that she's that young and she has that good of an American accent. Yet, when we're watching Doctor Strange in the first movie, that guy can't nail down, Benedict Cumberbatch can't nail down an accent to save his life. So, like,
I'm all over the map. Like, okay.
Everything is flat. When I speak, everything I say is flat.
She's got a great kind of awkwardness and strangeness about her. Like it feels like
she's a kid.
Yeah, but
I mean, she's not fully grown. So like there's already that awkwardness to her. Also, I like the fact that she's not a goody two shoes kid. Like
she's
she
strange,
likes being she likes being in front of the cameras. She's a bit of a ham. Like I like those parts.
I liked her, looking into all the cameras that were going on. Instead of I'm just gonna stare right at this camera because that's where the camera's at and everything. Like, no, sweetheart, you can just look over here. We're okay.
Jack has to tell her not to look in the camera.
She's like, I just look at every time the camera, and she would still, and again, lovely little parts. They would still sneak back in points where she would start looking at the camera again because that's what they would do. That's what a child would do. They would continue. You go, okay, I'm not supposed to look at the camera, but you can't help that the little red light goes on, and that's where you're going to be looking. It's kind of fun. And they shot this with 3 cameras, like a television show. They
like it's a 3-camera show. Yeah,
they toyed around with the idea of doing it with like actual like proper old school cameras and stuff, but they were like, with all the effects and stuff we're doing, that's no bueno, no good there.
Man, no way. With those giant cameras that they had, like those giant studio cameras. Oh my God.
I will say this though, I wish they would have leaned in a little bit more to the effects or kind of a VHSing aging process for it. It doesn't need to be like, and they hit it a couple of times and stuff, but like, I wish it was just a little bit more pronounced, like a little bit of, and again, you're not supposed to be going for this, but I think you're supposed to be going for this when the point is that it's supposed to be, old and degraded and all this kind of stuff. Like right. Just edge enhancement and stuff that like just tiny little things that like make it kind of look crappy, but for a good reason, like it would look, like it would actually look if you dug it up from 1977, essentially. But I know that most people,
as much as I like this movie isn't perfect. I mean, I think in the second act we spend way too much time with Christu, like so much time with that character, and a little too much time, but not a ton with the skeptic guy, the Amazing Randy character. I think the
skeptic bit, or not the skeptic bit, but the first guy and everything, your Christo guy. Mm-hmm. I think, to me, that the reason that works is that the reason I like it and how it's drawn out as it is because it feels like a time bomb. Because something's going to happen. You're not quite sure what it is or when it's going to hit. And it feels like we are watching that 1977 broadcast going, some crap went down on this broadcast, but we don't know when it is. So we need to watch it from the beginning. And you're watching it going, something jacked up's about to happen. We're just trying to wait for that thing to, again, it's not hitting yet. And so that little anticipation, though, makes it kind of worth it once it does hit that thing.
But that's the problem, is that that it's the kid who's possessed, which is where we're going to start running into the problems, right? I mean, yes, he does projectile vomit black bile all over the Amazing Randy character, but like, get to it, like there's a reason why if you're going to see if you're going to a David Bowie concert, the opening act for David Bowie doesn't play for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a reason for that. And I think because they hit it at about the 40-minute mark where the girl comes out. I think that's right. I might be wrong. But it's right around there. And I'm like, man, we are finally 40 minutes of watching a movie where we knew this is what we were getting to, is the girl. It just seemed a little long to me. Like if they would have taken some of that time away, I don't know if I would have been tapping my foot like Sonic.
Good reference. Yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, that kind of stuff worked for me, and it just kind of like it did. It gave it that slower burn and everything, but like that made me like it even during the moment of going like, oh, I just where's it gonna hit? What's gonna happen? I know something's down the line, but it also feels like this movie, especially at this point, by this point, it feels like I trust this movie enough. With what it's shown me up to this point, when we get to the Christo bit, I'm convinced that this movie's got a good head on it and is going to lead me down the proper path at this point. So at that point, I'm still riding with it because I'm like, you know what? I feel like they're doing this on purpose, and I'm here for it.
Do you? I can't imagine that these directors aren't going to move on to bigger, better things after this movie. They did such a great job with so little. I mean, this movie is so small. And I don't think I realized just how small it was going to be until I saw that set. And I was like, oh, we're here. This is where the rest of the movie is taking place.
Yeah, it's they just go, okay, that's all we can do.
I mean, the set looks great. It really does look great, but you got to think that they probably, I don't know what the scheduling was for this thing.
20 days.
I mean, it had to be around there. It had to be less than a month that they shot for, because there's no way that they're keeping everybody in that room for more than 30 days. There's no way.
Oh yeah, they did do a decent bit of it with a live audience and everything and stuff.
Yeah.
So Dastmalchian was like, it was nice to have that kind of feedback and everything, and just being able to kind of feel it there.
Do you think that they shot the audience stuff last? I would imagine that, right?
Oh no, you're supposed to shoot that first.
The audience stuff first?
Oh yeah, you shoot audience stuff first.
Okay.
Because like you got to get them in and out. Like they're the biggest thing. If you can you want to get all that stuff taken care of, then you can take all of your time to do the stuff. Otherwise, you're banging through your stuff to kind of last minute go through all that sort of stuff. You want to hit all the other stuff because you have your actors there and you're shooting all your kind of behind the back stuff, shooting out towards the audience and stuff. You want your actor there within, and then dismiss all those people and then have them be able to do their work without having to go, oh shucks. No,
you're right, and that way you can also kind of know what you're missing with the audience gone. That's true.
But 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, this thing. So these directors are going to be doing more stuff.
Well, I mean, I don't care what other people think. I like it.
But no, but between critics and audiences, when both of those things, scream and go like, hey, this is really, really good, I think you're going to get like another Daniels kind of situation, where it's we're going to give these boys a little bit more money and see where it takes them.
Yeah, let's see some more interesting stuff like this. When it comes to an audience saying that they love a movie or a TV show, I don't care. Young Sheldon was on TV for what, 15 years?
Oh my Lord, my parents watched every episode.
I mean, that show was on TV forever, and a spinoff of a show that's terrible, unbelievable. That character of Sheldon was on TV for what, 20 years, probably.
That sounds about right altogether. Yeah.
I mean, just amazing. So I don't really care. What I do care about is there are fresh ideas here. And there are a lot, even though on the surface it looks like something we might have seen before, we've definitely never seen it like this. And I don't think, I can totally see someone watching this and thinking that they can do this, but they can't. This is a high wire act, and they pulled it off, and it's wonderful. It's the thing that I was afraid of when Bo Burnham did Inside, where he made that entire thing himself. I thought we were going to see a lot of lesser than people try to do the same thing after him. I'm very glad that didn't happen.
I never saw that one. I watched 8th Grade, obviously. That was great.
I mean, it's good. It's good for what it is. It's kind of amazing. But again, that when you have to preface it with for what it is,
Yeah, and he's one of those people that I have a love-hate relationship with him. I know I appreciate what he does. I think he's I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a very, thoughtful person and everything. I also think he thinks very highly of himself. I just Bo Burnham likes himself some Bo Burnham. I can guarantee you that, and that's something that kind of turns me off. It's just I feel like he would just look at his he watches 8th Grade and just goes, "God, I'm brilliant." You're good. You're good. Stop telling us that you're good. Just humble it a little bit, buddy. That's all I'm saying. Just gonna take it down a notch. All right, before we get to our final review, we have to find out how this Late Night with the Devil movie relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
G'day, Mr. Stallone. The movie Late Night with the Devil was shot entirely in Australia. I'm sorry if I'm bringing up bad memories for you, because in 2007, you were fined $2,500 by the Australian government for bringing in 58 vials of human growth hormone into the airport in Sydney.
How much was he charged? $2,500?
$2,500.
That's like nothing.
I know. That's not even $100 a vial.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Come on.
In an interview with customs agents, you said that you were prescribed the illegal substance to give your aging body a boost while filming Rambo in Burma. To which I say, well, duh.
I need a little boost.
You were quoted as saying, this stuff gives your body a boost and you feel and look good. You said it in a customs interview. Doing Rambo is hard work, and I am going to be in Burma for a while. Where do you think I'm going to get this stuff in Burma? End quote. Your ruse didn't work, and you ended up having to pay a fine. Now, look, Mr. Stallone, give me a second while I cough. Now, look, Mr. Stallone, I I want to like you. Really, I do. But you're making it very, very hard lately. Like recently, when you called an extra on your show a fat tub of lard, that guy was making $100 to be there for 14 hours. He didn't need to hear that. And when you had to leave the state of Oklahoma to film your TV series Tulsa King because your comments and actions caused the entire state to hate you. Now, look, we all have our demons. One time I told a girl I was moving to LA because I didn't want to date her anymore. When she saw me out a year later in public with a different girl, that didn't go so great. But I learned from that mistake and became a better person because of it. But here's the thing. You're 77 years old. I don't know if you have a lot of time to learn from these mistakes you keep making. So please, let's get it together and stop being a monster, okay? And that's your Stallone connection this week. The country of Australia. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, the Hartford Hellion.
Listen, you can dip your toe into being, a rational, non-crazed human being as much as you want. It's all fun and games, but eventually you got to get out of that water. It ain't no good in there. It's just going to spoil you. Just do what you want as Sylvester Stallone, I tell you.
77 years old. He's still calling extras a fat tub of lard. Get out of here.
Now, to be fair, was he super fat?
He was fat, but that's not the point, man.
It is weird. That's like, I don't know. Like, I feel Sylvester Stallone. Could you insult me? I want to just see how it feels. I just that would mean he'd have to acknowledge this show exists. So we know that's not happening. All right. Well, let's get down to our review here and everything. Here at H&P, we have our own patented Robin rating system. I'll rock first here. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Thought it was really, really fun. Great first outing here for Dastmalchian as the lead in a movie and everything. I'd like to see him do some more stuff. I think the guy's got enough chops. I think we've proven it here. And he's just got he's a great character actor. He's just got that character actory look to him. He's never, going to be like handsome matinee idol or anything, but like his face works for the things that he ends up doing, if that makes sense. Like he totally he just lives in these characters, whether it's that kind of polka dot man thing or his little dude from Ant-Man. Like you said, again, the Baba Yaga. We all joke with that crap to this day on account of that man. That's his joke. It's a joke. So it's good stuff. For me, this is a high Tim Drake. Very, very good.
I want so badly to give this a Dick Grayson, but I can't. There are some faults to this movie. So I've got to give it the highest Tim Drake I can possibly give something. I love this movie to death. This movie feels like a gift. This movie feels like something that because I realized that as I was midway through watching this that oh no, I have built this movie up too far. But it still did not let me down. I just find it so wonderful. It is a Tim Drake for me.
Yeah. So highly recommended. That is out on Shudder right now in stereo. Just in stereo. Not even high definition. Now, that's another one when they premiered Mad God, the Phil Tippett had been in 30 years purgatory kind of thing. It looked like garbage. I couldn't watch it. It's just like the encoding or whatever. I'm like, I'm sure this looks great, but it don't look great here. So I'm like, whenever I see that in physical media form, I'll pick it up because I could not stream that thing. It just looked nasty. Step your game up, Shudder. I pay your money. I pay you money every month. For the love of God, thank you for the Joe Bob. How about you give me a little bit of high definition and some surround sound for the love of God? Then they're gonna be like, well, it's $12 a month. No, that's how they always do. All right.
Yep.
Join us next week, everybody, when we're talking about our Patreon selection. Again, let's run down those. We got The Creator, we got Aquaman 2, Fallout, The Beekeeper, which I should say them, and Rebel Moon. So it is up to our supporters over at patreon.com to make the wisest of selections. Let us know what we should watch. And you know what? We're going to come back here next week and we're going to do this here yet again. In the meantime, Sean, what happens when new Star Wars stuff come out?
We have a show called Star Wars 30 Questions. And we've got a new Star Wars coming out very soon. And when that happens, it's coming out to the Disney Plus. We're going to be asking 30 questions of the latest episode of that Star Wars property.
Trying to figure out what date this is, but I can't spell acolyte properly.
There's a weird Y in there.
Yeah, that's how they do. It's a Star Wars kind of thing. Somebody's going to be named Chapatu or something like that. That's how it always works with Star Wars. So we'll be talking about that. So that is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking our Patreon selection for the absent Bruce Leslie and the Hartford Henley and Sweet Shots and Kovacs from the internet. I'm Adam Porters. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.